sign up to my email list for the latest special offers exclusive for our Listen Up Show Startup Entrepreneur Podcast audience at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. I have been providing business advice, resources, and help to entrepreneurs for over 20 years, and I'm looking forward to helping all of you. Sign up for my email list, again, at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. I will provide you with full transcript for each interview, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, the Startup Checklist, and many other education and training materials, all back at mitchellchadro.com/sign up. Now enjoy the show. Hi, this is Mitchell Chadro. On today's show 053, you remember Nick DelMonico from show 031. Nick is the founder of Strados Labs. His website, stratus.io, and Twitter at Strados Labs. Let's remind everyone that Strados is the only wearable that listens to each and every breath you take. Strados checks how well your body and activities synchronize with your breaths, and through the touch activity sensors and onboard vibrations, Strados actually provides you with discrete notification and guide you mindful breathing that improves performance and health. Nick, I see that Brinc has actually invested in your company, so can you tell us about that exciting news?
Yeah, sure thing. And thanks again, Mitchell, for having us on the show. So Brinc is a hardware accelerator in Hong Kong. They also have some offices here in the United States. And their core focus is on hardware technologies. Specifically, our track is Internet of Things. So how do we incorporate connected devices with software to improve the way that people interact with technology? And so we were fortunate enough to go through the Brinc ramp-up program this summer, and it's about a month-long program where we're really going through due diligence and building a relationship with the folks at Brinc, talking to them about our business, what our strengths are, what our challenges are, and then we had an opportunity to pitch to their investor committee, and they were excited by the technology that we've developed, and now we're part of their cohort and their portfolio. So it's been really exciting for us in the last few weeks.
Well, we're extremely familiar with Brinc. As a matter of fact, that Bay McLaughlin, who's one of the co-founders there at Brinc, was actually on our show 035. So how did you guys actually meet?
Yeah, I did actually see that, which I was excited to see as well. And so I was searching for other types of hardware accelerators to look at for Strados Labs, and I came across Brinc, and what made me most excited by Brinc was even getting to hear Bay talk about the company and why he started it, and to really, get a sense for his passion for hardware companies. And it's investing like any other, because it's very different from the way that software works, especially from a timeline perspective and capital intensity perspective. So I really liked his passion and his interest in the area. And we kind of were able to communicate with them and connect with them and go from there. So it was a really good match.
So in terms of an investment, we talk about not only getting an investment, but basically working with an organization, with a company that can provide us with resources and advice and help. So what do they have been able to specifically do for you since the time that they've invested in the company?
Yeah, and that's, again, a really big reason for why we were excited by the relationship with Brinc was we're early stage or first-time founders ourselves, and what we started to realize as we were building this product was that there's a lot that goes into hardware, from, not just designing and developing, but then going through manufacturing. And that was something that when we looked at Brinc and the portfolio and the resources that they provide, we felt really strong that they would help us better understand everything from our bill of materials to how do we actually interact, engage with contract manufacturers, thinking about unit cost pricing of our product, and ultimately being able to get our product into market. So they have a wealth of knowledge at Brinc, not only from the portfolio companies that they've already invested in, but most of the folks there themselves have been founders of hardware related companies. So it's been they've been really hands on with understanding our business and getting us the right resources so we can move forward.
We've talked to other entrepreneurs, and I believe when we spoke to you initially, we had talked a little bit about, how you go ahead and test your product in the market. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of those usability studies that Brinc has obviously been able to help you also in addition to doing?
Yeah, and that's a big thing for us is, lean startup and lean method is important to what we're doing, and there's a unique challenge in doing it in hardware. So for what we've, tried to conduct as usability studies is we wanted to look at what are the key risks from a user's experience perspective, and then what were the key things that we wanted to determine were beneficial to the users as part of the experience with our product. And so the first thing we did was we wanted to understand wearability and which form factor people would be most interested in wearing our device, and also making sure that paired up with where we needed somebody to wear it in order to get the right level of information. And because it's something that has to collect data from your heart and lungs, we wanted to be as close to the heart and lungs as possible. So that requires it to be sort of on the rib cage area. And so, when we were testing with people, we wanted to give them a few different options. So we designed, patches, clips, straps, what we call pouches, all of these different designs. And then we had key features that we wanted to evaluate. So were people really interested in being able to take the device on and off on a daily basis, or did they want to wear it for, 5, 6, 7 days at a time? Because that would, again, change some of the parameters of the device. So we did those types of tests. Came up with, good themes from what we saw from different types of people, which ultimately helped us with our final product design from a wearability perspective. And then, next step there is to really get somebody to engage with, hey, I'm wearing this new monitor. It's in a lot of ways like other activity monitors, like a heart rate monitor, for example, but it's giving you a new data point, something that otherwise, people really haven't interacted with unless maybe they've gone to the doctor and had somebody listen to their lungs, but they haven't had any of that themselves. So starting to see how people engage and interact with that information and what they think is good, what they don't like, what they want more of, in an iterative process has been really helpful. And talking with specifically the folks at Brinc, that was one of the key things for us was how much building do we need to do from a hardware perspective to be able to evaluate and test some of these components, because that's a major thing for people in hardware is, you don't want to build too much, spend a lot of time, spend a lot of effort, and then realize that it's not a product that people are interested in. So, it's a challenge to figure out the right way to test that, and they've helped us a lot with it.
Well, I wanted to see how much progress you had made since the last time you were on, and so I obviously came to Stratus.io just to see, okay, how now is Stratus working? And I was actually able to watch that 35-second clip that you have on there explaining how it actually works, how it actually operates, and actually how it actually clips on to either a piece of material or actually just basically attaches to your body. And so maybe explain to the audience a little bit in terms of, take them through that a little bit, because I really think it's kind of neat. And tell us a little bit about the resources that helped you actually put that clip together, because I think it was put together very nicely.
Yeah, sure thing. So, what we realized from a lot of these user studies was that, interestingly enough, for females, the ability to use a clip type of version, was really popular. So being able to put it right under a sports bra or a bra strap, it can actually go under a chest strap as well. Somebody's using it like a heart rate monitor as well. So that's one form factor that you can wear it. And the device itself it's almost the size of a watch face, and it's shaped like a teardrop, if you can imagine that. And it actually can pop in and out of these little overmolds. So the one overmold is a clip, like I had mentioned, and then the other one is just a little, like we call it a lily pad. And it's just a little patch where you can put an adhesive sticker on it, medical grade adhesive, and we've done some testings with that as well. And these are very comfortable. They work well with sweat. They work well with body hair, different types of skin, different shape torsos, and it's been so it's really easy to use, and it goes, like I said, right on the chest or back, under a shirt, pretty inconspicuous and fairly thin, and then it just sinks right to your phone. And in the video, that Mitchell mentioned, somebody's running with it, somebody's doing some yoga, another guy is doing some weightlifting. So, it's very easy to use while you're active, but it's also, of course, for folks who just want to monitor everyday activity, whether that's sleeping, sitting, being at work, walking to work. Doesn't just have to be in an active setting. So, we are really excited by the progress we've made and the video that we had produced. We were working actually with a company called Spirit Animal based in outside of Philadelphia, and they've done a few other types of pre-ordering and crowdfunding type of videos for companies, and we were really excited by the other work that they did, and they've been really fantastic with us too.
Tell us about crowdfunding, because we did an entire show on crowdfunding. And I know that Brinc is your first major investor in the company. Talk to us a little bit about what you're now doing for additional rounds and how you've actually been able to sort of develop, your investment strategy going forward.
Yeah, that's another exciting thing for us about being on the Brinc portfolio is that, we know that they have a big strength in consumer product development and getting traction, whether that's through crowdfunding or pre-ordering types of campaigns. So we're working with them now to come up with our own strategy of how we want to execute. We're leaning towards doing some sort of pre-ordering type of campaign where, similar to other types of products, you can go to the website, you'll be able to buy it, before it's ready for sale and production. And when it is ready for production, you'll get the product. And if it doesn't go to production, then of course, you get a refund for your product. So, it's a strategy that we're working through now, and we're really excited to work with the folks at Brinc who have done it for many other companies, many other times. And so we're hoping it should be available in the first quarter of next year for pre-order. And if you're interested now, you can certainly sign up on our mailing list, and we'll send you notifications for when it is available. And we'll give you some perks and some gifts and stuff to be engaged with us at the early stages.
Yeah, I really encourage the audience to go over to stratus.io and really check out the wearable and the video, obviously, because it really has come along quite nicely, and I'm really, really excited for you and proud of what you've been able to do to this point, and really continuing to look forward to seeing, continued success. You mentioned manufacturing, you mentioned cost, you mentioned production. Can you take us in a little bit with more specifics and delve a little bit deeper? Because there's other people out there that, basically want to get to this point that you have already been able to, and tell them a little bit about, and tell the audience a little bit about, who's going to be helping you manufacture this and the cost and how you've been able to sort of come up with that strategy.
Yeah, sure thing. So for us, we've been very focused on figuring out what our bill of materials are, right? And for us, that couldn't happen until we understood our design and understood, at least for our first iteration of the product, what components were required to build it, where we would source those components and who we would partner with to acquire those components, and then who we would help build those components. So the contract manufacturer that we chose. And for now, in the shorter term, we've decided that we want a lot of local type of contract manufacturing work, and that's primarily because, we want to get it right. There's a lot of technology that goes into the Strados device. We have microphones, we have a PCB with an accelerometer, a gyroscope, and a nanobarometer. So there's a lot of information, and it needs to be, high quality, and we want to be able to test it. So we decided to do a local contract manufacturer in the short term, like I said, and that, is not always the most cost-effective means, but it helps us feel like we can get comfort around the quality of our products first and foremost. And then we have been engaging with contract manufacturers abroad as well, so we can hopefully optimize the cost of our units as we build for production through, pre-ordering campaigns and things of that nature.
Can you talk to us a little bit about not only the costs that are involved with the manufacturing, but some of the partnerships with these particular manufacturers that you're working with? Are they local? Are they national, international? If you could tell us, shed a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, so one of the one of the parts companies that we work with is local. So Aero Electronics, for example, is one of the companies that we source a lot of our parts from, and they are they're a multinational brand. They especially in the Philadelphia area and across the country, it's not uncommon to be able to see Aero Electronics be highly integrated into the consumer products and the products space. They actually have a big partnership with Indiegogo being a crowdfunding platform where they really want to help products be certified as being able to be produced, because that helps them, of course, with building better quality products, building products that actually can make it to market, and certifying, for Indiegogo users and platform members that products that are on that platform, aren't just a rendering. They're actually ready to be manufactured, and somebody's done the due diligence to figure that out. So, that's one of the suppliers that we work with, and we have a local contract manufacturer that we work with as well, who's been really strong. And like I said, we are working with building relationships abroad as well. We just aren't at the point yet where we need to focus on, building that relationship too far out, but we are considering it at this moment.
Now, how do you determine how much production that you make initially and cost and things of that nature? I mean, where are you at in terms of that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's a big part of the planning that we've been doing with Brinc for the last few weeks is having to have those conversations with manufacturers around, hey, here's what we're trying to build. Number one, do we have the components to build it, and can we source those components? And number two, what's the tooling cost to actually make the tool that manufactures the Strados device? And then from there, they come up with sort of a minimum order quantity for what would be really for them and for folks who are trying to get into the hardware space. Something I've been learning over the last few weeks and months too is it's what they're willing to essentially make as a minimum in order to create that tool to produce the units. So, for us,
so what type of net profit margins are we talking about with a product like this?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's part of the pricing strategy for us. Is standard for hardware is somewhere around 3 to 4 times the unit cost at scale, and that's roughly what we're working with. The price of Strados is about $169.99, but for most of our pre-orders, it'll be closer to about $129.99. So if you're, we want to give benefit to the folks who are early and excited.
Now that's for one unit. Is there a quantity? I mean, obviously there are people out there that might purchase quantities, and so that's for one unit. I mean, are you pricing in people that are obviously purchasing consumers or groups that are purchasing more than one at a time?
Yeah, so we do have a strategy as well where, whether it's through a pre-ordering type of campaign or relationships that we're trying to build with larger enterprises, larger quantities, of course, we will reduce the price point. So one of the things that we've done for pre-order campaigns is if you buy a 2-pack, you get another 10% off of the early bird special price. And the early bird special is about 30 to 40% off of retail right now. So, it's a bit of an art and a bit of a science. I'll, be honest as far as, coming up with the right level of discounts. And core to that as well is, making sure that you understand whether or not your product is a quality product or a cost product. Are you trying to demonstrate that, hey, this is something that's unique, novel, high quality, gives you some really, really big value? That changes whether or not you have a much larger margin or a much smaller margin versus, just trying to make a lot of really cheap units, but getting your profit from quantity versus your margins.
Now, we also talked about, of course, the usability studies, and of course, we've just talked about, what the product actually looks like, and for people to go onto your website to obviously be able to see that. These are working prototypes. How complete actually are they? I mean, how close are you to actually get to market, would you say, in terms of looking into the future?
Yeah, so for us, the units that we have that work right now are one version away from the ones that you'll see online, but they work to the fullest extent that we want them to work as far as gathering information, getting to classify wheezing and coughing and changes in breathing pattern for you, and sending that information to the cloud and to the application. So, we're really excited by, as far as understanding the technology and the functionality of it, we're getting really, really close. And the next step for us is, as we're doing our final round of tests where we have people come and actually use the device, like more private beta sessions, that's where we'll make our final iterations on the design and also the functionality of the features for the application. And then that will go into what is our design for manufacture.
Yeah.
So we're away from that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Another exciting thing that I actually saw on the website was the actual app that does a lot of the tracking. And so, through my company, I have another site called Apps Smarter, and we want to be able to obviously feature this particular solution on there, which we will, and we'll have a link there. But tell everybody about that and the app and actually how it tracks and, the practical use that the everyday consumer person, can use the app and let me hear some feedback that you've already received about it.
Yeah. So for the application, we wanted to make it as simple as possible. And that's really part of our core mission at Strados, is to simplify respiratory management. What's nice about the Strados device is that it's a consumer-facing health wearable device. We have deeper insights into breathing that other trackers just simply don't do. So for us, you would wear it the same way as you would wear many of your other devices, and track a lot of the same things, whether it's heart rate, whether it's activity. But we're really building in the functionality for breathing. So you'll be able to get a real-time breathing, dashboard to actually see every breath in and out, which is really cool. And then if you wanted to dive in and learn a little bit more, there's a summary of statistics tab that essentially says, here's how frequently you've been wheezing or coughing, or what's your average inhale-exhale ratio, and what's your heart rate and activity for the day. So, and it's nice because it will integrate into Apple Health and then the Android Health kits as well. So, we wanted to make it as easy to use. We don't want people to feel as though they have to be on our app and our app only to be able to better manage whether it's respiratory health or exercise and activity.
On our last show, we talked about, winning prizes and using some of those monies to basically help you. And I remember at that time we talked a little bit about, Hen Hatch, from the University of Delaware, an innovation lab, over at Temple University. As you know, we had Ellen Weber on the Listen Up show and the Mitchell Chadro podcast. Tell us a little bit about some of these other awards since that time that you've been able to sort of, gain some traction and some funds to help you. I see here on your site, it says We Work Creator and the BYOBB. I guess that's from Temple as well. Can you tell us a little bit about those prizes that you won and what you've been using that money towards?
Yeah, sure thing. So the WeWork Creator Awards, it was a sort of a really new concept last year. And what it is WeWork, the company that does co-working spaces globally, decided to create essentially a competition where people who had, either good ideas or strong growth opportunity companies could compete against each other on a national scale and could win, a creator award, as they called it. So it was really a national, global business competition, and we were fortunate enough to have send in our submission. It was a 2-minute video submission talking about our product and our company, and why us, why are we doing what we're doing at Strados. And we were fortunate enough to get into the final round in DC, and then we're able to win a $36,000 grant for being a creator. So it was a really fun event. It was down in DC. It was a few thousand people were there. Some really prominent folks. The CEO of WeWork was there as well. I think the CEO of Sweet Green. So it was a really fun event. It was really cool, and it was really great that they had companies at all different stages. So there were folks like us who were really in that ideation phase, maybe some early proof of concepts, and there were other folks who were ready to accelerate and already had sales. We wanted to get to the next level. So it was was a really, really cool event. And they've actually shifted now, I think, into doing more of an investment in those companies versus just a grant award. But for us, we were fortunate enough that it was just a grant. And what we decided to do with that, amongst some of the other awards, was to really focus on two things. One was building the product that we had done a proof of concept for, and then two was starting to understand the consumers and the customers more, to get a sense for what people cared about, why they would care, what our value propositions were, and getting us a lot further along in the development phase.
Being in the Philadelphia area, even in the tri-state area, there's a lot of wonderful hardware accelerators that continue to pop up, one of which that you're currently working with is NextFab. So can you tell us a little bit about that accelerator and what type of resources they've been able to help you with?
Yeah, so NextFab, interestingly enough, for us was the first time that we came up with the idea for Strados. We met at the NextFab facility about almost 2 years ago this month. And it's a really awesome maker space, as they call it. It's a space where you can do everything from 3D printing to doing metalwork, woodwork. They have, just a tremendous facility of, not only really talented engineers, but also pretty much any machine or equipment that you might need for early stage development for a company. And they decided to put together a venture team where they would do early stage investments for Philadelphia. Now I think they've expanded to more regional companies, but they, focusing on hardware in the city of Philadelphia. So we were fortunate enough to be part of that hardware accelerator this summer as well. And similar to Brinc, they asked us for what our key milestones were. They wanted to get us to the next step, getting us from, like I said, proof of concept into, really getting us as far along to design for manufacture as possible. So really hands-on. We got to spend 12 weeks at the facility. We had, office space there. We had access to all the equipment and all of the engineers there. So it was, it was a really exciting opportunity for us, and we continue to stay involved with the folks at NextFab because they've been such a good resource for us here in the city of Philadelphia.
And another exciting partnership that you have is, or at least that you've been working with, is Ben Franklin, the FabNet. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that and maybe some of the resources and how they've been able to sort of help you take things to the next step?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben Franklin Technology Partners is essentially a state innovation fund here in Pennsylvania, and they have a Philadelphia, Southeast Pennsylvania chapter where they have these grants. And I apologize, I feel like there's so many acronyms, but so BFTP SEP has a task loan and then a FabNet program. So the FabNet program is essentially, if you have an idea or a small proof of concept type of project that you want to conduct at a consortium company's facility, and a consortium company being, things like NextFab, and there's some other resources in the city as well. If you go to them with a project proposal, they'll actually give you a $5,000 grant. I believe it's a matching grant, so you need $5,000 of your own capital as well, but they'll turn that into now a $10,000 project. And so it's a really great opportunity, especially for us when we won our first business competition. We had a little bit of capital, and we said, well, this is the right time for us to try and use FabNet as a means of expanding and extending our capital and building a bigger project. So Ben Franklin's been really strategic for us from that perspective.
Yeah, well, one of the good things of joining the podcast and the community is that everybody who does gets a transcript. So there'll be links to all of that, and I think it's very helpful. It's a major resource for other entrepreneurs who, let's say, were where you were the last time we got together on the show and sort of want to be able to, gain some additional dollars. Can you talk to us about those dollars that Brinc actually invested in you and what your plans are in terms of the amount of money? I mean, I know you mentioned Indiegogo in terms of a crowdsourcing platform. To tell us a little bit about, how much money you've already raised and what your future plans in that regard are?
Yeah, sure. So if you check out Brinc online, they can certainly give you a lot more detail around not only the accelerators, but how they invest in companies too. So, in the event that I don't give you enough information. You can certainly find some there. But they typically do an equity type of cashless investment in the company. But what that really means, and I'll provide Brinc with some PR here, is don't be afraid of the cashless component if you think it's the right strategic partnership for you. Because especially at Brinc, they have just a tremendous team of very dedicated resources, and having that network and having those folks who are really diving into everything from financials to helping us with strategic marketing, everything down to our value propositions and our customer discovery process, it's well worth the investment. Cash is certainly a very important component to any startup, particularly hardware, but you also need to have strong strategic partners and people who are really there to help you get to the next level. So that's what they've been able to do.
And so what percentage of the company and how much do you give up, and what type of cash are you sort of getting in terms of how it's actually structured? Because, for someone out there who's considering it, one of the things that they'd like to know is, how is this actually put together?
Yeah, so if you check out their website too, actually they talk about the equity percentage. So it's about a 3% equity on a cashless basis. And again, that changes based on your valuation, or what 3% means changes on the valuation of your company, right? So that's a component that you have to understand as you're going through those discussions with any hardware accelerator of any kind is what that percentage equity means, and it does change based on the company, so it's hard to there's no exactly right answer there. Again,
obviously they put a value on your company, so what type of valuation did they come in at?
So I don't know if I'm able to disclose. I'm just
whatever you're able to talk about in terms of the structure. This is more for the audience in terms of what they can expect when dealing with companies like Brinc, for example, so that, they're at the point where they're wanting to sort of go through the same type of process that you've already been able to go through with them. And so it's a way to sort of open their mind to the various options and the possibilities and how they can sort of go in with a better understanding.
Sure. So what I'll say to that end is that if you take a look at hardware or specific industry trends and valuation on things like AngelList.com, where you can actually look at the average valuation pre-money and post-money for certain companies, I would strongly recommend somebody take a look at that as a baseline for their own company. Obviously, you have to look at what stage of growth you are. Are you in a really big market? Are you already receiving traction? Do you have revenue dollars? And this is all if you don't already have an equity valuation, which our company does not. To come up with at least a baseline, I think that's a really good starting point, and that actually helped us as part of our discussions with Brinc as well, because to help prepare somebody, for example, is they will probably come in with a number as to what that 3% of equity is on a cashless basis, and then you'll have to go in and determine whether or not that's effective or appropriate based on your stage of growth in your company. So you certainly are open to those negotiations and those discussions, which was, again, a really nice thing about working with Brinc. But again, as far as what those exact numbers are, it'll probably change, and it depends on your specific scenario.
You may recall the last time we actually got together, I had asked you, three of the main keys or takeaways. And so since the last time we've actually met, you've obviously learned quite a bit. Can you leave the audience with 3 additional takeaways since the time you've been on the show before that you've kind of learned from?
Yeah, I would say one takeaway is always focus on the customer. I think when you're whether it's a software or a hardware company, you have to engage with people who are either potential customers or current customers of your product and your company, so you can really get a sense for what works, what doesn't work, and it'll help you drive your discussions too, and drive some of your work streams, because especially in early stage companies, and this is certainly something that we've had challenges with ourselves, is pivoting. Pivoting for some of the right reasons, sometimes pivoting for the wrong reasons. You'll get a lot of feedback from people, whether it's at pitch events or with angel groups, advisors. People are going to give you their opinions in a very short 3 to 5 minute, exposure to your company. And, you have to take it with a grain of salt, and you have to really always kind of hone in on and focus on, well, who is it that we want to engage with, and who are our customers, and what do they care most about? Because that will really help you kind of stay on the straight and narrow for your strategic goals. So that's one.
That's great. And so focus on the customer and what they're looking for. And then secondly,
team is tremendously important, and that's something I think I did mention a little bit about the first time too, but whether it's your founding
did, and I'm
team,
glad that you brought them back up again. So how are things with your team, and what have you learned since the last time we spoke about the team?
Yeah, so the team has been good. The founding team is still together, which is really important for us, and that's something that we didn't really think would be an issue for us as a founding team. But what we've also had to realize is now that we've been expanding and building our team, whether it's consultants, we've had a set of interns and co-ops from Drexel. We have now a full-time product designer who's been helping us. And doing those recruiting efforts, it's really important to feel like there's a good fit there. So, it was a good next frontier for us was, okay, we felt good as founders, but how do we bring in the right talented folks to help us get to the next level? How do we know that they're a good fit, and how do we know that they have the skills to get us where we need to go?
And so how have you been able to sort of, learn that quickly? Because, obviously you want to get it right more than you don't. So how have you been able to do that? Just briefly.
Yeah, I think for us, what's worked well is we've come up with a pretty good action plan for recruiting. So, we know who we want, what types of roles we want to fill, but then what we do is we already have a sort of a systematic way of approaching each and every interview, whether it's, first starting with a phone call, getting a sense for folks and their interest levels, going through their resume, step one, not wasting too much time with having interviews with folks who, they just don't feel like a good fit within a 15-minute phone call. So that's a good way to screen out. And then number two is after we do have initial, long meetings with folks and interviews and getting a sense for them, sometimes we get really excited by people. But what we do is we always take some time to take a step back, really get an understanding of whether or not this person's the right fit. And then we always follow up with a couple of action items for that person. So to get a better sense for whether or not they are really interested in our role specifically, working with our team, because there will be moments where if you ask somebody to do a little, mini case study or mini type of project, or report, they really just won't do it, because they're really not that interested. So it's another, again, kind of a good screening tool for us to use, to make sure that when we are hiring people, we're hiring people who we know really are passionate.
And where are you finding most of your people? You mentioned Drexel, the co-op program. I don't know if I know, we've interviewed a number of people from the close school over there, but where are you finding most of the people that you're getting to come in to fill those roles?
So we've used a combination of a few platforms. One, the recruiting platforms for the academic institutions. So Drexel Co-op has been good. Temple. We've worked with Penn a bit as well. And then AngelList is a good one for us, where, we have the roles and we have, some remote, some mostly located in Philadelphia. That's a really good tool of getting a lot of kind of quantity applicants for each of the roles and then being able to screen through there. So those are kind of the core ones for us. And then sometimes word of mouth, just people that we've met in the community say, hey, this person I know is really good at algorithm engineering and they're looking for some work. So then we'll talk through those people as well.
And the third takeaway that you've learned since the time that we last spoke?
I would say it's being passionate about what you're doing. I think last time I talked about having fun, which I think is, you always have to have fun, but now having been part of Strados for over 2 years, you have to have a passion for it because it's not easy to do any type of startup company. It's harder to do it in a healthcare space and building a hardware device to do it. And that's something that, we've certainly had a lot of challenges with. And so if we didn't have a passion and interest to actually create something that we think can truly make an impact on millions of people's lives to make them feel like they're living a happier and healthier life and better managing the way that they understand respiratory signs and symptoms, I don't think we probably could have gotten as far as we have. So I would say stick to your passion and, stay true to yourself.
And I always like to leave it with something that you feel that we didn't cover, but that you'd like to be able to leave the audience with.
I would say just, beyond everything else, you have to be passionate. You have to have the right team. There's a lot of work involved, but if you're not focused on yourself, and your own health and wellness, then it's really hard to focus on building a healthy company too. So, whether it's entrepreneurship or something else that you're involved with, always just make sure that you have a good work-life balance and you take care of family and friends first.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've been talking to Nick DelMonico. He's the founder of Strados Labs, and we are so excited to find out, Nick, of course, your continued success, and you'll certainly keep in touch with us. Again, your website is strados.io. That's STRADOS.io, and on Twitter at Strados Labs. Nick, thanks so much. We really thank you, and you'll let us know your continued success and progress with getting the product to market.
Thanks again, Mitchell, and as always, pleasure to be on the show. Thanks again.
Hey, you take care now. Be good. In closing, let me ask for my listeners' help. First, please subscribe to my email list at mitchellchadro.com/signup. You will get all the full interview transcripts, my ebook, 30 Tools to Start Up, where I talk about these free resources in show 006. You'll get the startup checklist, education and training materials, and other resources just by signing up at mitchellchadro.com/signup. Back at mitchellchadro.com/signup, help me boost the rankings of the Listen Up Show, the Startup Entrepreneur Podcast, by providing a well-written review in iTunes. mitchellchadro.com/iTunes. It helps other people find the show. If you actually need instructions on how to do this, you can find that back at mitchellchadro.com/signup. Thank you so much for subscribing to my email list and providing a written review on iTunes. Until next time.